Good morning, everyone, and I'm actually sure it's morning today. It's a little loud here. He is Anthony Stabile. I am Andy Serling. Our cameraman is laughing very hard at how loud it is in the building, and it's Talking Horses, and it's Belmont Day, so happy Belmont every day, everybody. And I'm thinking back how when I first saw that it was supposed to be a torrential rainstorm all day, and I was thinking how miserable that would be, but it's a glorious day.
Glorious day. They can hear us at Aqueduct in Saratoga today. So we've got you covered all three NYRA tracks. And, yeah, we're going to have a fun day. 13, first post 11:20, 8 grade 1s, 9 stakes in all. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
To my main man.
Thank
you. There are days where you and I want to strangle each other, but for the most part, you're one of my best friends. And I look forward to the days you're off. I look more forward to the days you're here. So, happy birthday, my man.
Thank you very much. Like any couple,
like any married couple, like any old married couple.
Right? We're basically a
That's
television married couple, and but I appreciate that, Anthony. Thanks so much, and same to you. All right, so we got some stuff to get taken care of first. A little bit lower here. They can't hear us at Aqueduct anymore.
No, just Saratoga.
Saratoga. Anyhow, head over to NYRA Bets if you're not a member of NYRA Bets. It's the last time you get that free $25 Belmont bet, and so if you've been waiting, stop waiting. Get to work. We'll match with $200 your initial deposit, plus give you a free $25 Belmont Stakes bet. Play through NYRA Bets. Keep the money in the game. Support racing in New York. We have $20 Belmont Stakes bonus, bet $200 or more, races 1 through 5. I've cut my losses the last couple days signing up for this, and you'll get $20 back, win or lose. That's the first 5 races. And we also have, this is actually pretty good. You bet $25 on the Met Mile today and the Affirm, which is out in California, if you don't know that. And you'll split $5,000 with anybody else that does that. And, one of them's, well, we'll talk about the race because I think we have a slightly different opinion, but looking for that Hillendale Met Mile. What else do we have? I believe we have a showdown, $10,000 winner take all. Love this. I love a winner take all, don't you?
Yes.
Winner.
I want it to be definitive. I want it. Yeah. I don't want to chop it up.
I guess if people tied.
I guess.
But that's
give me
not
the 10
likely
ball.
to happen. And then they have to wrestle it out. Arm wrestle.
That would be winner take it all. Yeah, I would love a little arm wrestling competition.
Hit the early double tomorrow in the first race tomorrow. Anyway, no, it's go to Showdown, go to NYRA.com, check it out, sign up, it's free. Possibility of winning $10,000, have some fun anyway. We've got so we've got a triple play in Saturday's race 4. That's the
4, 8, and 10.
4, 8, and 10.
So 3, all turf triple play.
Yeah, we're changing it up, right? And the Met Mile Belmont Stakes double. Race 9 and 11. Oh, I see. So that means there's no Met Mile Manhattan double.
Correct. But you can play a pick 3 if you like. It's not a special wager. It's just a wager.
It's all special.
It's all special. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Special day. Anyhow, what else do we have? We have America's Day at the Races, 11 to 2:30 in FS2, and 7:15 to 8:30. Of course, the other coverage will be, I think, on CNBC and NBC.
CNBC from 3 to 5, 5 to 7 on NBC.
And we'll be back at 7:15 for the last hour.
Hour and 15 minutes of racing action from beautiful Belmont Park.
All right, let's get started, Anth.
Let's do it.
And the first race, a pretty interesting race. I wanted to talk to you. I had a thought about Win for Gold, and I don't have any argument with you that Win for Gold is the horse to beat in here, and you ran into a buzzsaw on Key Point last time. We'll take a look. I think we're going to show his debut when he won. You and I talk about this quite a bit. It's actually something you look at more than I do, but it's actually something I agree with your thought process on it. Does it bother you this horse has now never taken a nickel?
Yes.
It's kind of weird, right?
Well,
and
yes.
He's run well in both his races. I'm not knocking him.
He also ran into 2 prohibitive favorites in Key Point and Kaz Mike.
Kaz Mike. But even
then, he's never seen single digits. It's a Rudy horse who's never seen single digits. Yeah, it bothers me a little bit.
I get why it was a big price last time, to be fair. I mean, he's coming off a 68 buyer, and he's running against Key Point, who's coming off a 94 buyer, and there are other horses in there. So I kind of understand it. It's fair.
He ran really well last time. He stayed with the winner, and he ran really well last time. Not that he ran poorly at 7/8, but he broke his maiden at the 6, and he had a real horse run away from him last time. And I just think it doesn't look like class relief on paper because it's the same condition, but Key Point would be any price in here, and now he doesn't have to deal with Key Point anymore. So I thought it was a very logical start to Belmont Day.
I don't disagree with you. My problem with him was the whole thing. 2 big prices and now a short price.
Sure.
And he does have a speed figure edge based on his last race. I mean, he runs his last race. He's going to be he's going to be hard to beat. Now, I will say though, Tappan to Bank. We'll take a look at. He ran well last time also, but also about him, he was down the inside, which was probably the place to be. And did Sinful Dancer do any running here in that race the other day?
It's no Sinful Dancer. There were a couple of firsts that took money in here that didn't run 2 steps. This was a weird race. This was the finale back on opening Saturday. And, yeah. It was
amazing. It's April 30th. When I put down the race number, I couldn't believe it was racing
6
in
weeks.
April. Brad Cox has very, very good numbers. One of the reasons I put him in there, Brad has extremely good numbers going off of maiden wins in general. And interestingly enough, he's got good numbers at NYRA doing it. So I thought this horse could be pretty interesting. Here's what you were more interested in last time.
Yeah.
We settled the argument from yesterday about the horse. He wasn't even on the show. 2 idiots up here. How about Unique Unions?
Well, Unique Unions couldn't get by Kaz Mike, who had the advantage of being on the inside that day.
I didn't think it was a super strong.
Well, he had a little bit of
bias,
right?
but I don't think it was. I thought that track was a little more fair than a lot of the days in April.
Yeah, Unique Unions made a move on him on the far turn. Looked like he was just going to roll on by, and Kaz Mike dug his heels in and drew back away from him. Yeah, he ran well enough. He gets first-time Lasix now. You know, you'll see this with the Rick Schosberg horses. They'll run through a cycle. Now, this horse couldn't have Lasix until his start 2 back because he was 2-year-old. But Rick's not one of these guys that'll just use Lasix to use it. Obviously, this horse he thought maybe would improve or needed the medication. So, yeah, it was 7 days for me. I saw it was kind of chalky to kick the day off.
I think Safalo's Mission is interesting, and I put him on top in here, and I'm not going to suggest he's the horse to beat in this race by any stretch of the imagination. But what I really like about him is he just came alive last time.
He did.
I mean, he ran so much better than he's run before that it almost feels like he's a new horse. And I think he surprised Linda Rice. I happened to be sitting down in the boxes, and I was sitting next to her and talking, and she wasn't overly optimistic. She was thrilled to see him run, but she wasn't overly optimistic about it. And one thing about Linda, it seems like when her horses get in good form, they hold that form.
They keep it. Yeah.
So I thought this horse would get a little bit lost, and based on speed figures, I think fits very well with the 2 outside horses, and I just thought might be a little bit better price.
Love the stable name, too, Thelma and Louise.
I didn't even see that before.
It's like us.
The horse is ready to try. Which one are you? I thought I was Harvey Keitel. Race number 2.
I'm Brad Pitt.
There you go. Back then, my ex-girlfriend and I went to a charity auction a friend of ours had, and Brad Pitt's chair with Brad Pitt's name on it, from Legends of the Fall.
Wow.
Was for sale, and she bought it for like nothing at the silent auction. Like really, she had it. Yeah, probably still has it. That was sort of.
If you're buying that, I don't think you're getting rid of it, right?
I guess not.
Probably not.
She was very excited. Really, I understood why she wanted to have something from Brad Pitt and not have me. Race number 2.
Andy Sterling, fathead.
Right? Yeah, they're at a premium. Power Agenda in the second race. No, you went to Bright Future.
I went to Bright Future.
Oh, I put Bright Future first. Right, I'm sorry. Bright Future. I'm going to tell you something. His maiden race was legit. I mean, you look at that. I mean, we'll take a look at it. You look at the fig and you look at the horse he ran against. I couldn't poke a hole in it. I hate it when these races are hand timed, though. But still, looking at the horse, I mean, obviously they didn't go 23-2, 45-3.
Right.
That's a little bit hard to believe. Nonetheless, good trip or not, this horse ran well. Todd does not have great numbers off of maiden wins, and he does not have great numbers off maiden wins in their debuts coming back. That worried me a little bit.
Yeah, he was just so good in his debut, and he's already been the mile, and he doesn't have to answer as many questions as a lot of these horses ordinarily do when they come off a little bit of the break. They make the ship up. I love the fact that he has that one-turn mile race already under his belt. Again, a logical start. And I'll tell you what, Andy, the other part of the entry,
he can win.
Power Agenda.
He can win.
Right? Good debut. He mixed it up from an inside draw, in over his head a little bit in the hopeful, gets a bunch of time. This horse was training lights out for this race.
But the problem is,
why did he turf him? That's the problem.
It's not going to be a 2-1 entry.
No, it's going to be a 7-5 entry.
I wonder if he turfed him because Nyquists have done okay in the turf, and he thought, you know what, I've got enough horses in this division. Maybe
we're going to run against Bright Future the next time it comes up, right?
So now he runs in an entry, and it just felt to me like this entry wouldn't be 2-1. They'd be closer to even money in here. And a lot of it because of Power Agenda. And that's, you know me, I'm always going to take shots against them. And by the way, Set Sail, we'll take a look at his maiden win at Santa Anita, and he was favored in the Peter Pan. You actually nailed this when we did the show talking about him last time. You said to me he's now breaking from the inside, and as you said last time when he broke his maiden here, he was breaking in front of the grandstand. But in this one, he was breaking out of the chute. And he lost his all chance in this race at the start. I mean, it says chased inside, but he ducked in at the start and completely blew the brake.
Day was over. Yeah. His day was over. And he chased the morning line favorite in the Belmont Stakes that day, by the way.
Mo Donegal's going to be the favorite.
Mo Donegal's going to be the favorite. Yeah,
and by the way,
probably should be.
He should be the favorite.
Yeah, he probably should.
Absolutely should be. He's absolutely the horse to beat in there.
I don't know one person who likes We the People. I know 1,700 that like
David Aragona likes We the People. I respect David, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just think that whether you like Mo Donegal or not, he's the horse. I don't know we'll talk about it later. I don't know what being the horse to beat means in the Belmont this year, but he's to be the horse to beat.
Yeah, I mean, this horse figures to run better first time, second time over the strip now, and a little bit of a better setup. You know, it's not really out of the chute. He's not laid right along the inside on the rail. I would imagine he's going to get a better trip today. And I'll tell you what, though, I don't think he's going to get away with anything on the front end. There's enough speed in here to keep him company.
Yeah, no, I don't. Todd's horses, Bright Future's fast. I mean, higher quality's fast. I don't like higher quality. Sorry, Louis. I don't like that horse. Rode a gold rail last time. I like Three Jokers because at the end of the day, I understand the other horses have upside. But he's faster than they are. And because they're marquee names and he's running against, just the regulars around here, but he runs faster figures than these horses have run. I understand he's a ready-made horse, and those horses all have upside. But why wouldn't I want him at 5-1 in this race, knowing he's as fast, if not faster, than anybody?
You know what my biggest problem with him was, Andy? His two best races came when he had a little bit of a layoff, right? The April to July, then the March to May. He came with his two big figs, so maybe some more time between races helps him. I don't know. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here.
My biggest problem with him is he's got 3 wins in 6 seconds. That's my biggest problem with him. But I just looked at it and I thought I wasn't going to pick him. I was going to pick the race 3-1A because I'm never going to take an entry. It's going to be a super short price. It's just against my principles unless it's sort of nothing you can do about it because only one of them can win. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I take this guy at a bigger price? I don't love him, but I think that he merits more respect in this race than he rates to get at the windows.
Fair enough.
Race number 3 kicks off the action. Of course, we have the 8 Grade 1s today among 9 stake races today, and it's the Acorn. And it's a terrific matchup. Echo Zulu will show her actually win the Frazette here. Figured I'd show the mile race she won. I know I've said this before, and I know you don't disagree with this. I think you find out more about horses when they lose quite frequently, especially good horses, but all horses, when they lose. It's the whole principle of tests, right?
Her Oaks could have very well been her best race.
I think there's no question it was her best race. You don't want to. Why are tests graded on a curve? Why do they give tests out in school that no one can get 100 on? Because if you give tests people get 100 on, 8 kids are going to get 100, and you have no idea what the difference is between them.
Can't
and if you
separate
give tests that the best score anyone would get is an 80, you're going to get an idea. And I think with Echo Zulu, pushed to her absolute limit, a fast pace, pressing Ugari. Ugari's not a bad horse, and she was nowhere. I mean, she had to be one horse. And she was battling in the stretch. I thought that was a great race by her.
Me too. First time, in her debut, she was lapped right onto the horse on the front end before taking over. Throughout her career, though, she's been in front.
She's so good, she just dominates.
Yeah, she just dominates. And last time she had a little adversity. She had a chase. And
they were moving.
They were moving, and I thought she handled it with aplomb. Steve Asmussen, our Hall of Fame trainer, made it his business to point out that he was going to cut her back and keep her around.
This race, the test.
This race, the test. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think this. When you have a horse with the talent she has, and I think she's a really talented filly.
Oh, yeah.
And and now you have a plan now. Because you don't really, the plan is always the Kentucky Oaks until they fail or succeed. Well, she didn't fail, but Steve made the decision that I'm going to cut her back in distance. And now that she has it, there's a distinct game plan. her being pointed at certain races, I think she's going to be a very dangerous filly in this division this year.
Well, what I like, and this isn't the first time you've seen the Asmussen barn do it. They did it with Jackie's Warrior, who ran terrific in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile when he ran 4th, but he just wasn't any good at Oaklawn, and right away.
Gave him one shot in the Southwest, I think, and that was it.
Right away, same thing with her. Right away, let's keep these horses in the races they can flourish in, and that's what you do when you're successful. You don't. I mean, there's times to take a shot, but there are times. I think a lot of times people press the envelope. But I'll say something. I mean, you're trying to beat Matarea for second, which is fine. She's got a rival in Matarea. Now, Matarea, and we'll take a look at her winning the 8 bells. She's going to have to play Echo Zulu's game in here, and I think that's why you're trying to beat her, I assume, for second. Because even though you're going to look and say, well, she rated in there, she can't exactly let Echo Zulu get particularly out of her sights, and she does have a significant amount of speed. I'd love to see these two hook up, but, and you know me, I'm usually looking at the one who's a little less exposed. I don't. I'd like to see these two hook up in a pitched battle. I'm going to be surprised if she can step forward and beat Echo Zulu.
I'd like to see them hook up at about the quarter pole, and Divine Huntress picks up Matarea for second.
Hunter's been a disappointment, though, hasn't she?
A little. You know what I'm hoping? I'm hoping to cut back to the one turn. Her 7/8 maiden win was a good race. I thought good enough, for down at Parks. And then,
Last race wasn't terrible.
Sold her, stretched her out, which is what you're going to do. You're not buying her to keep her around one turn, right? You're buying her to see if she can stretch out. She won that race at Parks because she's just better than those horses. And then the Stakes Company, obviously, she didn't have she had a little trouble in the Rachel Alexandra, where she actually took a ton of money that day. She was 6.5 to 1. And then the Gazelle, she was up close and tired. I think she has distance limitations. I also think the one turn cutback is going to help her. Yeah, I don't think she wants to go that far.
Okay, I'm not sure.
How about a Housebuster mare on the pedigree page? How crazy is that?
God.
Yeah. Third in the Preakness to American Pharaoh and Tail of Verve back in 2015.
I thought Dream Lift would run a little bit in here.
Okay.
I've always had a thing for her, as you know.
She's a half a
She was disappointing in the fantasy, but nobody really made up any ground that day. So I had her for third.
She's not a full pet. She's like the dog you leave in the doghouse outside. You don't bring her in at night.
She was one of my smarter opinions in 2021, which may not exactly be a cute high bar, but nonetheless. Race number 4 is the Longines Just a Game. And it is pretty cool that Peter Brano's such a strong hand in here because Peter owned Just a Game.
Yep.
So that would be kind of exciting. And, somebody was saying as we take a look at Regal Glory winning at Keeneland and Jenny Wiley, and Shanna Starr is a very good horse, and she just dusted her in here. Somebody was saying to me last night on Twitter that he didn't think maybe, she hadn't run well at Belmont in the past. Well, that's not only true, as I said, because honestly, there's a strong argument she could have won this race last year if she didn't blow the brake.
Yes, she did. Yes, she could have.
And she also really started to get good then. That was the race that tipped her hand, that she was turning her career around. And then she ran, the Della Rose and that filly race at Gulfstream, because they were crying out for a female turf race at Gulfstream for the Don Day. She ran incredibly well in those races because even though they weren't strong fields, she won those races running against the grain of everything in the race.
Everything in the race.
All the races, the speed held up. They were slow paces. The inside runners did. She was wide around the track in both races. She still won. And that's the mark of a good horse.
She didn't even win. She galloped.
She runs good races when things don't go her own way.
I agree with the gentleman from Twitter. I don't think she does her best work here at Belmont Park. With that said, she also hasn't had a chance to run here at Belmont Park since she turned her career around. Right. So I can understand having that sentiment.
But she didn't run any. She didn't. I mean, look at the races she ran, though. They're as good, if not better, than the races she was running at that time on other tracks. So I don't think that holds up to any scrutiny.
Okay. All right.
I mean, her race in the Just a Game was very good last year. Having said that, she's got a real horse to beat and Speak of the Devil. And the 3, 4, and 5, the first 3 finishers from this race in the distaff. See, I think people get hog wild for horses that make big runs the way she did. And I still think that she's going to have to improve to beat Regal Glory. Maybe I'm wrong. And she's going to be favored in here.
On the buyer scale, she would have to improve.
Not in time form. Time Form US has her last race gigantic.
This was an effort. She made the inside-out move, and then
no pace, and she just blitzed the field.
I think the thing that impressed me the most, Andy, was she made the lead about the 3/16 pole, and she just kept going. More often than not, these horses that make these big moves, and I know what you're saying. You see these big flashing moves.
She's a good horse. I mean, she lost to Space Blues.
She made this move. More often than not, when you see that move, the only one on the card is in the last column. She made this move and sustained it and drew away. She made the move early into a paceless race, and she galloped. I saw enough last time.
Do you think she should be favored over Regal Glory? You do? Okay.
Off that race, I do. Okay. And I think a lot of people will take into account her lack of success. Regal Glory's at Belmont Park. I do.
Well, I think off the last race, way to look at it.
I think the last race, speak of the devil, should be the favorite.
Okay, here's a trivia question for her. Look down her PPs and look at her pre-Rothschild, where she finished third, beating a head in a blanket photo. Who finished fourth in that race? I'll give you a hint. She bombed yesterday at 2-5.
Oh, Ruggier.
Yeah. Just so I point that out.
Okay.
An Italian feels like a pace setter in here.
But she's got to chase Legs Galore.
But his Legs Galore is fast. I agree. I love that Legs Galore came here.
Me too.
I love that Phil D'Amato took a shot coming here. It's a big race.
Phil was smart.
This horse has an amazing record. I mean, this horse's record on the turf is unbelievable.
And the fact of the matter is they just don't have enough grade ones out there. She's going to come here, and if she runs third, you know what that does for her pedigree page?
I hope she sticks around.
Yeah.
Nice to have her here in this race. And, I'll tell you something. I think Brendan Walsh deserves a lot of credit yesterday. He's one of the very few people, and he's the only one that shipped in, basically. Not the only one. The two that Vicky Oliver did. He almost won that New York handicap.
She ran giant.
And for the people that complain about Chad Brown sort of overwhelming these races, well, he's certainly going to overwhelm them if you don't run against him. And Peter Brandt buys these horses, spends a lot of money in the game. He made these races go. And
that's the other way to look at it.
Alan Jerkins, in the old days, people didn't skip these races. And Brennan almost won that race yesterday. And I almost wondered after the race yesterday, and Bleecker Street's an incredibly cool horse. She may be one of the coolest horses in training. Started out at the Meadowlands in Monmouth running 60 buyers. And now she's won 4 straight grade stakes, including a grade 1. That's the mark of a good trainer.
Yep.
Get a horse like
we
that.
Talked about it yesterday.
But I wonder if there are some people that saw that race yesterday and say, maybe I should have run in there.
Right, where the two Chad horses that the public kind of honed in on.
Ruggier didn't do any running at all.
Didn't do any running at all.
And all of a sudden it became an open race.
Yeah.
And not knocking Bleecker Street, she's terrific. I mean, she came from dead last in the paceless race. Nobody else closed.
Again.
She was brilliant.
Again.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't
She's
mean that, but I mean, these guys that talk about this, it's like, well, sure, he's going to win these races. If you don't try, you don't run against him.
It's the same thing in California. 4 of the horses in that affirmed today are previously trained by Bob Baffert. Sean McCarthy has 2, and Tim Yakteen has 2.
You're geared up for that 25-25 thing on that affirmed.
Yeah, well, we got the Cali blog. We don't shirk our responsibilities. The Cali blog's up, my man.
I think there's actually a distinct possibility that Anthony might have worked harder than me this week. It's actually the first time it's ever happened, but I think it's possible. We've got the meter. We've got a bank of judges.
It's like Tiz now in Giants Causeway in the 2000 Classic.
I don't know.
Andy won't let me buy.
Andy will not let me buy. I think you got this one going. I'm trying to figure out. So what time are we on till? We have 55 more minutes. We're on till 9:50, so we're good. Okay. It really is a beautiful day. I hope you're coming out to join us here.
There's general admission available. I think there's still some tickets available as well, but you can come right. You can walk up today.
So it is interesting. Somebody pointed this out to me just now on Twitter. Lone Rock is locally owned's got 1 mile and 5/8, but Lone Rock's the only horse this race actually got 1.5 miles.
Yeah,
which is actually kind of cool.
Portos won 1.5 miles, 1.5 miles too in the Murphy behind Lone Rock in April.
Okay. We'll look at him winning the Brooklyn last year. I tell you one thing. He took off like a wildebeest in the stretch of this race. He was running through the wire at 1.5 miles like no horse ever does.
He had been claimed about 5 or 6 starts before this Brooklyn last year. And, excuse me, he made it pretty clear early on when Diodoro and Flying P and Jay Provenzano claimed him that distance was going to be his friend. But this was his coming out party. Right? He had run decent races, and he had taken a bunch of money, and he kind of beat up on some suspect fields. This was his absolute coming out party last year, and he dusted those horses.
That was a joke.
I mean, they claimed him for $40,000, and he has earned over $1 million now.
Well, that's
unbelievable
okay.
claim. He's up there.
That's what Jay deserves for bringing us pizza during the pandemic. I always knew when I got off the set there would be Jay.
He bring in the Mother Kellys?
It was the Sicilian slices. I don't know where they're. I'm talking the ones at Saratoga. He's had them at Aqueduct too. But I mean, those ones at Saratoga. I think they're probably from Louis, right?
I would assume.
Yeah. They were good. I agree.
No
I picked him second. I'm not against him in any manner in this race. He's the horse to beat. And listen, I want to get the first Constitution Portos. And locally owned beat Lone Rock. But when he beat him, it was a gold rail. And Dylan came up the gold rail, and he was out in the middle of the track. First Constitution was a crazy horse because he was like a runoff in this race. When they first started this race, Anthony, the flat out, I mean, didn't you think that he was like done the way he ran off? He just totally ran off early. And Kendrick got it was Jose Lascano. Was this Jose's 3,000th win?
That is a possibility.
Nonetheless, I just feel like these horses are a cut below the best horses.
I do too.
That was my feeling.
I do too.
As far as Warrant, I mean, I think Warrant's second to Express Train in the Santa Anita Handicap might be the best race anybody ever ran in here, though Fearless has run some good races too, to be fair. He's got to get a mile and a half. I don't know if he's going to. And I actually thought he ran very well in the Ben Ali, because if you look at the Ben Ali, that was a pace that came apart, and he was a part of the pace, and he ran very well. Dynamic One came back and ran really well. I know Scalding did disappoint a little bit, but he ran well, and he was picking up pieces in there. Obviously, he's a mile and a half's an unknown, but I want to take a small shot with him coming for Brad.
Listen,
not a fan.
I don't like First Constitution, but and locally owns probably a little. I put him fourth. He's probably a little tough to make, but the other five can win this.
Okay,
race.
Make your case for Fearless.
So Fearless, by go zap out of a streetcar man. I can't imagine he's going to have a
you can't imagine?
I can't imagine he's going to have a big issue with a mile and a half.
I would say, I think he may be able to handle it.
Yeah,
you can imagine it.
So
you actually can imagine it.
And I think, don't take this the wrong way, Lone Rock. I think this horse might be the most talented horse in this race. And if the big question is distance with that pedigree, and I think that question's can be answered the right way, I think he's a very, very tough horse today.
Okay. Do you know what bothers me about this horse?
What's that?
I didn't like his last race at all, by the way. And I do question the distance. It bothers me that this horse has never run in New York. You can go to a two-shot, by the way.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
Bothered me.
That's a fair point. Yep, I bring that
up.
He's
good enough to run. He's good enough to run, and he is a good horse. I don't mean. It bothers me he's never run in New York. Why didn't Todd ever run this horse in New York?
I don't know.
That concerned me a little bit. Max Player, and I don't disagree with you. He's a good horse.
I thought about that last night when I was going over this stuff. The time of year, I think, when his layoffs come.
Never run in New York. Max Player winning the Jockey Club Gold Cup at Saratoga. So, does his last race say he just can't run anymore? Because, Anthony, this horse is a pretty good horse.
Yeah.
He got really good for Steve last year.
He did.
He ran, I know sometimes Steve's horses will need race off a layoff. He was awful last time.
He was third in the Belmont Stakes back in 2020.
Mile and eighth Belmont.
And he was good when he won the Suburban here in the slop.
He didn't run badly in the Travers,
He didn't run badly in the Travers.
He ran badly in the Derby.
That last race.
No, I agree. His last race is atrocious.
And now he's got to go a mile and a half off that last race. I wish I could. I would like to have seen A, one more race, or B, a little life last time.
No, I'm not going to argue with you.
He ran a half mile last time.
He was hideous last time. He runs the race ran last time. He'll get beaten by 30 here.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But on the other hand, I'm less worried about the distance than anybody. I'm a little worried about his current ability level, but I'm not worried about the distance. Interesting, Brooklyn. I thought it came up an interesting race, and these are talented horses. And I don't disagree. I think Fearless on a talent level is comparable to anybody in this race, if not better than most or all. The Lone Rock's pretty good. I mean, the good Max Player is pretty good, but he's good. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. I don't like he never ran here. That bothered me because I thought about picking him much higher. The Woody Stevens.
Presented by our friends at Mohegan Sun.
They're your friends. I mean, I'm not enemies to them, but aren't they? They're
really be back for the Breeders' Cup.
Bigs to be all friends.
Yes, they are.
So Jack Christopher is back. We'll show him beating Papa Cap. The rivalry continues. And You know, Chad Brown said he ideally rather not go from a mile of 7 furlongs. I don't know. I think it's. I mean, he's a very hard horse to pick against. I mean, he might be the most talented 3-year-old in the country.
I said that I was talking to a couple of friends downstairs this morning. I feel that
You have
way.
Friends here?
I do.
Did you check with me first?
I think no. I forgot.
They're not better friends than I am, are
no,
they?
of course not.
Okay.
I feel.
Unless it was Phil.
I feel that Phil's not here today. I feel like he's the best. I feel like he's the most talented 3-year-old in the country.
Whether or not he's going to be talented a mile and a quarter,
right.
like
different
the horse
story.
like Xanon and early
story.
voting is a different story.
Correct.
But, you know, I mean, there's. You know,
he's good. He's a good horse, and I'm not going to try and get queued up here. You know,
he's got to just go from the rail. He's fast. He really is faster than these horses. They've just been rating them.
we're in the position here where there are some horses that they're just too logical. We don't love coming up here and giving you 3 to 5 shots, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you to bet on a 5 to 1 shot because he's 5 to 1.
Well, I mean,
yeah, but
if it's 5 to 1, you think it should be 3 to 1. You might tell people
this
to.
is a little different.
Morello, I'm going to tell you something. Draw a line through his wood because he blew the brake and something went wrong.
Something went wrong.
And there is an argument that coming out of this Gotham with another forward move, and I think it's very reasonable to expect Jack Christopher to have a forward move after making his return race in a mile as well. This guy could be a player against Jack Christopher.
I agree.
This race was sensational. And the other thing I love about this is they didn't force his hand. He had the Wood Memorial disaster. They didn't go to the Derby. They could have run. They didn't rush him into races. They
were
their
thinking
time.
about it, by the way. They were thinking about the Derby, and then they just decided that they were going to kind of hit the reset button.
Don't ruin him by running a race.
A lot of good
he would have gotten
the rest
buried
of the
in the Derby.
You know,
with his running style, buried.
There's a lot. We have this. Of course, we have the Allen Jerkins up in Saratoga, and then when you come back here in the fall, you know, you have one-turn races like the Kelso. You have the Cigar Mile at the end of the year. Yeah, you know.
No, and I like seeing people getting rewarded for doing the right
Absolutely.
thing. Because, you know, you take a horse like Classic Causeway, because he should be in this race.
He should.
If he hadn't run in the Derby,
he'd be 3 to 1 in here. He'd be 5 to 1.
Whatever he'd be, he'd be one of the horses in the mix to win a Grade 1. And he needs to win a Grade 1. And my guess is that Brian Lynch wished, and Brian doesn't have him anymore. But if Brian had his way, I'm sure Brian would have been in this race and not in the Kentucky Derby, and I think Morello deserved it. Now, Witt, I tell you what I loved. I think there were a lot of things to like about Witt's race, and obviously he has to get faster.
Well, the most important thing, I don't want to step on your toes, but when the gate opened, he was in front.
He was a totally different horse than he was last year. Not only did he not get left, but he was right there on top of the pace. I mean, he was like a completely different. And the reality is, and I know that Highly Respect came back and lost a race. It was a wet track, and et cetera, et cetera. It was a mile. Highly Respected left him for dead.
Opened 4 on him.
And he came back, and yeah, he won a fortunate head bob. But this was, and I know it's the same figure he got in the Sanford, please. He was like a new horse.
New horse. Different horse. Tactical.
Yep.
Alert. You know, he was the kind of horse where he would walk out of the gate. You'd almost think that a rat would have to remind him that there was a race going on. He was that lazy early on in his races.
He was a completely different horse.
In that Bayshore, it was like they put a different horse in the starting gate. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I thought I tried Chasing Time last time, and he was probably bothered by the bias in that race trying to close outside, but I just don't know if he and Provocateur are good enough to win here. Yeah. I do like the name Provocateur, though.
Yeah, I would imagine he's going to be forward right now. I don't know why you're entered in here if you're not going to try and go to the lead.
I tell you what, if Jack Christopher wants the lead.
Oh, no question. No. He's not as fast as Jack Christopher, but I'm saying you'd have to imagine there's some intent from the outside draw. I mean, what are you here?
He should be forward. Yeah, no, I agree. Speaking of forward, we move on to the Ogden Phipps, and this is you know, I was thinking back to the Princess of Silmar, Closed Hatches, Beholder race.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That was
Belgalante was in there, too.
Who?
Belgalante was in there.
That's right. She ran
Antipathy?
third. No, but Antipathy ran third.
Antipathy ran third. Belgalante ran 4th or 5th.
5th, because I think Beholder was 4th.
Beholder was 4th, yep. All 5 won Grade 1s in the next 2 starts after that.
4 or 5. These 5 are Grade 1 winners, and the other one is Grade 1 placed multiple times. Latruska Clairiere, and you and I are going to take a little shot with Clairiere. I want to show the start of this race. And I'm not usually a fan of cutting a horse off at the start, but Clairiere asked for it. And I agree with Jose for cutting her off because she got left. And that's my concern with Clairiere. She's got to stop getting left.
She doesn't break.
But I thought she ran sensationally, and I think a one-turn race like this, where the pace rates to get heated up more in the second quarter, is right in your wheelhouse. I mean, she ran, think of how well she ran the Mother Goose here last year, which, by the way, she lost because she got left. The slow pace or not. I'm getting a little tired of it, and this is the kind of horse you knock me for taking because you say she keeps getting left. Today is the day I think she has her best chance, though, to
I think she's a better filly now because, the truth be told,
she's a better horse than a 4-year-old.
Yeah, her running style, if there was a horse on the card that's suited to Belmont Park, it's her.
Right.
She's supposed to absolutely love it here.
Yep.
And I just think last year she was still trying to figure things out, and even the second half of the year.
Ran a winning race in the Mother Goose. She was just getting progressively better.
Yep. I mean, good race in the Alabama, puts it all together, wins the Grade 1 in the Cotillion, runs really well in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and then comes back this year with 2 dynamite efforts. She's supposed to get a good setup today because Latruska's Latruska, search results has to go and get Latruska at some point, no?
At some point. She's not going to sacrifice herself trying to beat her, though. I mean, the reality of Latruska is her race in the Appalachian, I mean, I know she had it in her own way, but it wasn't like a ridiculously slow pace. She shows no signs of slowing down. She ran basically the same race at Gulfstream she ran the year before, and she ran that race. And forgetting about the debacle in the Breeders' Cup, she's like a wind-up toy. She just goes out, goes to the front, and they can't catch her. And you and I are going to try to beat her here, but to deny that she's a fabulous horse and the horse to beat is foolish. Yeah. She's incredible. Look at her career record.
It's amazing. She's amazing. 19 for 25.
I mean, and she's just going to go. So I'm not against her, even though I'm going to try to beat her in here. I want to talk about Malathot and Bonnie South in the Double Dog Dare. So you buy these arguments more than I do. Malathot is a horse that does what she needs to do to win. And listen, to be fair, she ran a comparable race that she ran in the... I'll wait.
I'm listening to you.
She ran a comparable race that she ran in the Ashland. And she proved dramatically off the Ashland to win the Oaks. She gets it done. I can't knock her. But I tell you what, she's got to run faster to win this race.
That race was just so slow last time.
But Super Quick, who finished third, came back and ran a 107 by her with the track or not.
Yeah, I mean...
And I'm against her too, Anthony, but to take strong stances against horses like Malathot, you get yourself in trouble.
Believe me, I don't want to take a strong stance against her. I don't want to take a strong stance against search results.
I was shocked at her fourth.
I felt like...
Seth could be crying at home.
I hope
he's not watching.
I feel like Malathot... she probably wants a little bit more ground, too.
Really?
Yeah, I think she wants a little bit more ground.
I don't, but I don't agree. I don't think there's anything to back that up. But I'm curious to see what she does here, and because she's just been terrific. And it's interesting that she and Search Results are meeting for the first time since that Oaks, which really was a great race. Search Results came alive last time, and you want to say it was the muddy sealed track? I'm not buying it because she ran these races. We'll take a look at her roughie, and she ran these races last year. She's been training very well since that race. And the thing that she has over Malathot and Clairiere is she is going to be in attendance of Latruska. And she's going to try her. She's not going to get into an all-out duel with her, but she's going to be the one that's least compromised behind Latruska. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, you figure she's going to be the first one, as I like to say, to come calling. We'll see how that goes. And if it benefits her to be closer to Latruska, or if it helps one of the closers come and pick them up.
She was good in that race.
She was really good.
I wish it wasn't on a wet track. Not that she didn't run like a We the People. She wasn't, carried along in that way. I just wish it was on a dry track because I think that race is every bit as good as any races. And listen, why doesn't she have a right to improve? I mean,
she does.
She was very good last year.
She probably has the most blue sky in here.
I've been really looking forward to this race, and I'm really glad they ran Clairiere here.
Me too.
So originally, I thought they'd run the filly. It didn't run well last week in this race because I, like you, thought that this was, whether she wins or loses, that Belmont Park is a racetrack for her. The one-turn races are just perfect for her. See what happens. We're going to take a break. We've still got 6 more races, including the Belmont Stakes presented by Naira Bets. We'll be right back.
Who are you betting on? How about an app created specifically for horse racing? Naira Bets. We specialize in thundering hooves, fist pumping, and boosting your bankroll with robust weekly promotions. and offer betting tips from actual horse racing experts. Bet all day and night, nationwide. Get the action and thrill of horse racing with NYRA Bets.
I hope you didn't miss us. We missed you. He's Anthony. I'm Andy. So, before we show the replay.
By the way, that Phipps starts the All Stakes Pick 5 with the mandatory payout today.
Thank you.
We got a ticket up for that at NYRA Bets.
You got to take it for everything. You got to take it for bets that don't even exist. Let's show a replay of the turf sprint. Couldn't come up with a better name. Not that we have some goofy names for races. I wanted to show the whole race because I want to talk about Gear Jockey. First of all, we didn't have him listed there, but the 4, Chase Nardi, got completely left, lost all chance. Gear Jockey is, I want to say, who's my top choice, the 8 in this race, is sort of up there in the mix.
He's in the black cap on
yeah, he's in those gold now. Chevrons, as they call them.
Yep.
And I think Arrest Me Red ran very well in here. I'm not arguing him. But right in here, Gear Jockey's going to get completely squeezed out and stayed out. You can't have trouble in turf sprints. And you can't have trouble in turf sprints that are mostly dominated on the front end. And I just thought he lost valuable position. I've always been a fan of Gear Jockey. I think he has races in here that can win this race. He had that trouble. I like he gets the outside draw in here, and I'm going to take one more shot with him. I have nothing against the horse to beat, Arrest Me Red, and he did run well in this race, not in any way knocking him. Who's the other horse? Gregorian Chant. And to say something like Gregorian Chant, he came up on the inside. Coming up on the inside was not the place to go.
No, it was not.
He was actually, Caravel won off the inside, though she got a very fortunate trip, would actually obviously have to run better. But I think he was compromised by being inside in the last race and didn't run badly.
Caravel came back to win our Intercontinental here yesterday afternoon.
Walking on the front end and other horses being compromised.
But yeah, I think you make a good point about the inside paths not really being the place to be.
I think it makes him a horse that's usable. You've got him third. I've got him as you say, infamous 5th pip.
Yeah.
Arrest Me Red is the controlling speed in this race on paper. No doubt about it. Last year's Jaipur, Wesley Ward had Bound for Nowhere, who was the controlling speed on paper and couldn't lose the race. And the race totally collapsed. I regret that Wesley Red is improving. I'm still not completely sold on him. I got him in the mix, but I'm not totally sold on him.
I would agree with that. I also, he's run well on the front end, but maybe a little better with a target.
No, it's better when
he's on the front
controlling at slow paces like he did in the turf the turf sprint champion. It's so good that we have an Aqueduct turf sprint champion, because that's a division at Aqueduct that particularly
storied past.
Can't come up with a better name.
Storied past.
What?
It's a storied past.
Right. I made money at the year before, so that
We've
worked.
run turf sprints at Aqueduct for 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Exactly. 3 years. Casa Creed.
My boy.
Main man, Lee Einseidler.
Yes.
We'll take a look at him winning this race last year. And Gray's Creek, by the way, is important to note. He was very unlucky in this race. Gray's Creek is towards the inside. I think he's like second or third to last, and he's trying to run inside horses. And Casa Creed has this great inside. There he is. He's down the inside. And poor Gray's Creek. And I think Gray's Creek was getting a better trip up that point than Casa Creed. There's an argument it would have been a lot closer if he hadn't got completely blocked in the stretch.
They were moving at the same time, but like you said, it was a tale of two trips, and Casa Creed.
We got to root for Lee in the big race.
When you look at his form since the Jaipur, 2 mile races, a trip to Kentucky Downs.
Well, let me say something about the Kentucky Downs trip. The Gear Jockey buried him. There wasn't a lot of pace in that race. And he also got buried in there as well. His performance was a lot better than it looks.
Saudi Arabia and Dubai. So you can argue that he's coming back and running in a race really for the first time that he has, I don't want to say a chance in, but
no, I don't agree with that.
Familiar? No, I
think he's a better sprinter.
But it's more familiar settings. He's getting back to what he wants to do. Yes, last time was a straightaway.
Well, he ran well in a straightaway in the other race. Or that wasn't a straightaway.
No, it was turns.
Here's my problem, and obviously I always want to see Lee do well, so I can make more fun of him. And he's a very honest horse. Always shows up and gives a good account of himself.
He does. He really does.
I'm worried that he went over there and ran 2 races. and now he comes back 2 months
So
later.
you know what's funny about that? I like the fact that he was over there for 7 weeks. Because it wasn't like he had to ship and run and come back. I think that takes more of a toll.
But he did have to ship. He had to ship from here to Saudi Arabia and then Saudi Arabia to Dubai.
Right, but what I'm saying is he didn't make the big ship immediately before or after the race. He was there for a while. I think it's actually a good thing.
Not a good thing.
A better thing.
I hear you, and maybe I'm making something out of nothing. And the Dubai thing is a bunch of nonsense about horses going there. And
these guys and gals have kind of figured it out. They figured out how to come back and do it.
But 2 times, that's a new thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Listen, I think he's a major player in here.
Course.
Don't get me wrong. It's not like
it's funny you mentioned Gregorian Chant. We have the same 5 horses in here.
Do you know my Gregorian Chant story?
Do you have one?
I must have told the story. There's the roof deck across from my apartment, which is level with my apartment, is owned by a famous actress. And years ago, they used to have their dogs out all night long. I think they were the ex-husband's dogs, and they barked and kept everybody in my building from the 16th floor up all night long. And they didn't do anything about it. One morning at about 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, loud noise starts pouring in my apartment, and I had somebody over, and I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's Gregorian chants." And the husband was working out in the roof, blaring Gregorian chants at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I went to my window. It's quite a gap to the other place, and screamed when you shut that crap off.
You screamed?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, even at 6 in the morning. He scurried off the roof and turned it off like I was Spider-Man, and I was gonna leap over there. And by the way, he could have pounded me to death.
That I would have paid money to see.
So every time I see Gregorian chants, I think of that story.
That's
I hope that wasn't too idiotic. Scuttlebutt. I'm going to tell you something.
Still doing this, okay?
Sorry, I digress. It's my birthday. Indulge me a little,
man. Yeah. Run amok.
I tell you something. Scuttlebutt really ran, and
he did.
And I think he's arguably. I mean, he arguably could be better at 6 furlongs. I mean, I know this race kind of fell apart in here, but I mean, you're going to completely discount the possibility. He's just a new horse. Speaking of claims, by the way, Rudy claimed him for 30.
6 for 8 with 2 seconds.
He's just as honest. And you liked him a little. I think he had 2nd and 3rd last time, and I laughed at you. I mean, he's as honest as they come. He closes into slow paces.
What's cool about him is, too, he held his form over the layoff. He was better last time. Last time was his best race by far. This horse got good. I mean, you really take his form apart. Since Rudy claimed him, you take out the mile race and the off-the-turf race. He's done nothing wrong. Really done nothing wrong.
Well, better than that, he's done a lot right.
Yeah?
Now, he has got to run better to win this race. But I got to tell you, you can't knock him. And I'm really curious to see what he does here.
Yeah, he's a fun horse.
The Hillendale Mile is coming up. So I don't think there's been a more talked about horse in the game over the last year than Flightline. Is that fair?
I agree.
I mean, it is unusual to see a horse. He runs a 105 Beyer in his debut, a 114 second. And I understand he's run very few times, and I get it. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for fans. How do you think it feels for the connections? You don't think they want to run him?
Of course.
And I'm so glad he's here, and I'm so excited to see him here. Todd trained the dam, by the way, Feathered. Yeah. He doesn't just train the sire of every horse. He trains the dams of them, too.
I'm excited he's here, too.
He's brilliant. And for people that say, well, he beat up a bunch of tomato cans last time, Baby Yoda's not one. And Stiletto Boy came back and ran some huge races this winter. He makes good horses look like tomato cans. Woe to the horse that wants to run with this horse. I'm not picking against this guy. I know he may be a little overbetting here, but I don't know. And I don't fall for these horses all the time. This guy is too good for me.
He is trained by a gentleman who was
3rd.
Notoriously had trouble shipping out of Southern California.
Except he won
He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. He was over.
No, except he won. No. If you let me finish, he won the True North a few years ago with a very nice horse that shipped here.
Yeah, the
Cruiser. Yeah. Catalina Cruiser.
Catalina Cruiser.
So you're really going to go against it because you're worried about him shipping for John Chapman?
Can I finish? This horse has been in bubble wrap for 15 months. We see him
6
when he can be seen.
6, 5.5.
His whole career.
I'm joking.
Been in bubble wrap.
Teasing you.
He has to ship. He has to go a mile, and he has to run against the best one-turn horse in the country, in Speaker's Corner. I'm going to take a big, big swing with Speaker's Corner today, and if he beats me, he beats me. But he ain't going to beat him because he's going to get tested for the first time today.
Well, he may. He's certainly running against a better horse in these races and in better form. He's running. Speaker's Corner is going to have a problem if he tries to keep up with this horse early. And the reality, and in my opinion, if one of these two horses doesn't finish first or second, I think it's going to be Speaker's Corner.
Okay.
I want to see him run this 114 buyer again because his other races aren't in the same. They're good. And listen, you know I'm a fan of this horse. You know I've been a fan of this horse for a long time. It's not, but if the flight line that's shown up in every race, and the other thing is, it's not like they needed to run him here. They're not going to ship him across the country
That's
to run
true.
here unless they felt he was going to run well.
But where are they going to run him? See, that was
they
the
could
other
retire
question.
him. I mean, I'm saying he's got issues. Obviously, they're not bringing him here
They're
unless he's
talking
ready
about
to
running this
roll.
horse in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That's the year-end goal.
Well, let's see what happens today. Listen, I'm thrilled they're hooking up, and I'm not way against Speaker's Corner, but I think that he's going to have his hands full with Flightline.
He probably will for about
For
a
all
quarter,
you people that
for
think
about
I
a quarter of a mile.
have an East Coast bias. What, you just think he's just going to demolish Flightline
I think he's going to hook him and run right past him.
based on what?
Based on this horse is going to face a real horse. I mean, he's going to face a real horse.
Well, wait a second.
And he's going to have a real horse in proximity to him for the first time.
We'll see how long he's in proximity to him. I wish Speaker's Corner all the best, and I know you love Bill. I think you're underappreciating how good Flightline is.
I'm not.
I could be wrong.
I think there's a lot. You're asking a lot of a horse that obviously has major issues for a barn that historically has had problems leaving Southern California.
Okay, we will agree to disagree in this race. Aloha West should not be ignored in here. He won the Breeders' Cup Sprint, as we'll look at him. But it's obvious he has to get better. I do not agree with Wayne Catalano that he ran the second-best race last time. I thought Reinvestment Risk, who had trouble to start and was steadied, ran a little bit better, but I don't think he ran badly in there. And running behind Jackie's Warrior is never a bad thing. What a performance he put on yesterday. It's like embarrassing that I tried to beat him. He's just got to get faster to do it.
He does. He has to handle a mile. I know. I talked to. I was talking to Wayne Catalano this week, and I was talking to one of the partners. They basically were trying to get this horse to the Cigar Mile last year, and he just wasn't acting right.
They were talking about running him,
after the sprint.
I don't think the mile's an issue, one-turn mile.
Yeah.
He's just got to get better to win. And I agree with you that if one of the two favorites doesn't finish, I think they will run 1-2, but they don't, that Happy Saver's the one you want to pick it up with. He's got the bottom. He comes out of a two-turn race cutting back, and he's a pretty good horse.
Great running line, 2 for the two-turn race, made the lead tired right now, cuts back to the one-turn mile.
He has to get faster,
he's
too,
3
though,
for 4. He does. But at some point, if one of these two speed does come back, somebody has to be, you would think somebody's going to be running late. I think it's going to be Happy Saver.
No, I'm not. I've got him third. I get it. It's a great matchup. Looking forward to the Hillendale Met Mile, race number 9 today. Goes off at 4:43, probably a quarter of. So the Manhattan, I thought the Manhattan came up. A really fun race, and I guess I should be embarrassed. I picked one of the favorite in the morning line because I think it's wide open, but I do like Gufo in here.
You think he's going to be the favorite?
Who do you think will be favorite?
I think Ed Hamel's going to be the favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought David had him too low at 4-1.
I think he's going to be the favorite.
Why do you think he'll be favorite?
A lot of buzz that this horse just didn't handle the turf course last time. I think he's the one that.
But you think the money in the pool is based on not handling the turf last time?
I think it's Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. That's what I think it is. In a race that's kind of wide open on paper, I think this horse will take the bulk of the money. I think he'll be the favorite.
Okay. He might look. I think Gufo will be favored. I think he should be favored. By the way, I think Tribhuvan can win this race, and we'll get to him. And I think if you're talking about horses that had an issue in that race, to ignore Tribhuvan is a mistake. Horse ran a huge race in here last year. So let's look at Gufo and Highland Chief. And I'm not way against Highland Chief. He's like my 5th pick in here. Because I think a lot of horses can win. I think the horse you have in top can win. And he was my 6th pick. So I'm not Highland Chief ran very, very well in here. But I think that the cut back to 1.25 miles, believe it or not, is more beneficial to Gufo.
I agree.
And I do think there will be a little bit more of an honest pace in this race that Highland Chief will have to deal with in some regard, though he's not fast enough to be forward in here, and Gufo will benefit from it. And I do think the Gufo ran very well, 2 back. I like him in this race. I just think might be the best horse in here.
Highland Chief got a brilliant ride last time from Trevor McCarthy. Sidled up alongside a very slow pace. Right, something's obviously off with a bond too, because his last 2 races, just after yesterday, his last 2 races have just been abysmal.
He's mostly a Gulfstream type.
Yeah, and Gufo, that dawdling pace did him no favors last time, and he figures to get, like you said, a much
more honest,
reasonable pace.
I like Gufo, but I'm not at the exclusion of anybody else. And we'll look at the Santon Adamo race, and you were talking about it. Listen. Santon ran. I mean, you can't fault him for handling the turf when nobody else ran. And the reason, and I agree with you about Adamo not handling the turf, he made a move on the turn like he was really running. And he's finished up the deal and ran extremely well behind no pace in his prior race. And then he got to mid-stretch into the 3/16 point. He just started paddling along.
It was like a different horse.
And he finished third maybe because nobody else was handling, and he just was sort of rolling along. But it's just, he's a better, and that, I've talked about this quite a bit on Twitter. The Turf Classic was the race that really showed that there's something going on with that turf course at Churchill. Because other than the first 2 finishers, every other horse ran 15 to 30 points worse than they consistently run in Beyer figures. And one thing about turf racing, horses will run usually in a pretty, look at the good horses in here. They run in a pretty narrow band. They show up, run the races. You don't see, I mean, you might see one horse doesn't show up in a day, something, and it wasn't a bog.
No.
And it's just like every horse just ran
just
like
a weird course.
Crazy. And they've had issues with it, as people may know. And so I think it is a fair excuse. But that shouldn't be at the expense of Santon just because he handled it.
Correct. Right. His good fortune and his good effort should not be held against him because others didn't run well.
And I say something else, and you and I have touched on it. You wondered, would Brendan Walsh, the horses that ran well for him in Kentucky, would they do as well shipping here? Yeah. Yeah.
So far, so good.
And Santon showed in the Hollywood Derby last year that he could be the best 4-year-old turf horse last year. Ran very well in that race. Took a little while, and I think he's a major player in here.
I do too.
But I think Adamo will run well also. I'm not going to, if he's a favorite, I would never want him. Out of generosity to you, and I loved Channel Maker before anybody loved him, as you know. Did you know this is his 4th appearance in this race?
Wow, I don't think I realized that.
We'll go through them. We'll take a look at Channel Maker winning last time. In 2018, didn't get the best of trips in there. 8th, beaten about 2 lengths, never had a chance to win. Could have won. Finished 4th to Bricks and Mortar in 2019.
Good old Bricks.
And he finished 4th in 2020. I'm not going to knock him. He's terrific. I still think on his current form at 1.25 miles, he's not as good as some of the other ones. I want the up-and-comers more.
Okay, that's fair enough.
You're just going to have a Belmont day for you?
I had a tough time with the race. I went to an old familiar friend. I'm hoping, he showed some sign. He showed that he still can do it last time out. Let's see what happens with all those horses off the weird Churchill Downs course. He's going to be a big price. He's going to be 10-1, right? He's going to be a big price in here.
It's a slippery race. It's kind of like trying to grab a hold of a piece of soap or something that keeps falling out of your hands because there's nobody in here that you can unequivocally say, he's the horse to beat.
No.
And he's his main competition because there are merits to really all the horses in here, to be honest with you. L'Imperator, it probably was the bog last time, and it was not yielding. It was heavy. It probably was because he ran so much better. But he ran last time. He's not going to be in front here. I'm assuming the Tribune will be on top. What about In Love? I don't know. He's a 1.25 mile horse, but but he's not a bad horse.
My favorite under-the-radar jockey in the world, Alex Achard.
There you
Love
go.
this guy.
I mean, his race in the Keeneland Turf Mile last year, which I still want to call the Shadwell, but they don't sponsor it anymore, was sensational. I mean, he's got racing him a chance. Rock Emperor, he wakes up once every blue moon. He's like Rip Van Winkle and runs a huge race.
Yeah, I got to check the moon cycles for him. I forgot to.
I think Tribune is the interesting horse in here that's going to get lost in the shuffle. He ran huge in here last year.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, setting a wicked pace. And isn't Manny just going to let him roll again on this course?
Supposed to.
And you want to talk about horses compromised by that Churchill course last time. Who's a better poster child than him?
Nobody.
Right? Down the inside, setting the pace, the whole deal. I mean, he's a horse that's a lot better than I think he looks in here. This is a wild. You know, it's interesting with all the whining about the smaller fields. Nobody mentioned that the Jaipur and the Manhattan came up as wide open, fun betting races. Excellent race. A prelude, the annual prelude. A lot of good horses, and obviously I have a soft spot for Bricks and Mortar, as do you, and Domestic Betting good last year. Paradise Creek. And I know, I mean, you're obviously with Bill. I loved Paradise Creek, and I think back to him winning the Manhattan.
Yeah. My boy Yagley won it too back in '99.
Paradise Creek. Paradise Creek was one of my favorite horses. I loved him.
Nice horse.
Another horse I loved, Bill, was Theatrical. I thought Theatrical deserved Horse of the Year that year. He won Grade 1s from like February to November.
To the
Beat
Breeders'
Trempolino in the ARC winner out in Hollywood Park, and he ran at like every racetrack. He just ran all over the country.
He was a fun horse.
Yeah, and yet when he ran against Manila in Manila's last career start, Manila blew him away like he was just a housefly.
How cool was Manila?
Of course he was. Remember Talakano? You weren't there, but I was there when Cordero beat him with Talakano. And then the next start and last start, he beat Theatrical. The Belmont Stakes presented by Naira Bets, race number 11. It obviously lacks the star power of some other Belmont Stakes, but I think there's a lot of discussion here because, once again, is there any horse in this race that you're going to – there's a couple I'd be surprised if they won. There's nobody here I'd be surprised if they ran 7th.
Nope.
I guess I'd be surprised if Mo Donegal ran 7th, but 5th. Right. I'm not knocking him. I think he's the horse to beat Mo Donegal in this race.
I agree.
But the horse that the conversation begins with is Rich Strike. And Sonny Leone, who rode this horse brilliantly to win the Derby, but he had the fortunate circumstances where he could go inside and take a chance with him and get stopped and no one would notice.
Absolutely.
Whereas if Irad, who originally was inside of him, had gone inside and gotten stopped, he would have been the goat of goats.
Vilified.
So he didn't lose that much ground going around. I actually would argue, because people talk about the start, I don't care that much about the start because he was going to be well back anyway. Mm-hmm. He benefited from the pace the same way the winner did. But I would argue he was sort of more hampered by having Barber Road leaning on him kind of in the stretch. And when you get those closers, you want to be out there in the clear being able to make that run. Yeah. And I think that hurt him, and he ran away from Barber Road at the end. Let me ask you a question. Are you totally convinced, though, he's a 1.5 mile horse?
No.
I mean, I'm not convinced anybody here's a 1.5 mile horse. But
and I think part of the problem with him is, A, I think he's going to be the favorite. B, the rail draw last time, right? It's his 4th rail draw in 6 tries. If you and I and we go and grab 20 of our buddies and we all said, all right, let's write a trip for Mo Donegal. You're going to write something similar to what played out on paper.
If you knew the pace was going to be the way it was in the Derby, you'd have unloaded on Mo Donegal.
Unloaded. And the problem is, with the rail, with the trouble at the start, it looks like he ran the winning race in the Kentucky Derby when we know he didn't.
He didn't.
And now you got to take him as the favorite, going 1.5 miles. Listen.
I like this horse. I've always liked this horse.
Me too. He's probably the most logical, and he's probably the most likely winner. When I say most likely winner, he's probably 35% to win the race.
I think he's 35%? I don't know.
That's what I mean. It might not be that high.
I think he's 25%.
It might not be that high. Yeah, it might not be that high. But point being, he's hard to take as the favorite. He's the favorite right now.
If you're going to criticize Rich Strike for saying, and we'll get to the comparisons and the contrasts, he's got lucky with a pace meltdown, which he did, and a great ride and a great trip, and all those things are true. There is a fair argument, though, with him that he, a frog in my throat, he could be a horse that just is improving. We didn't know because he's running on synthetic surfaces.
Correct.
So maybe he was sort of a diamond in the rough waiting to get there, right?
He could also be the Churchill Downs horse that some people have anointed him.
Yeah, I'm not going to of a 60-something buyer horse.
I'll tell you one thing, Andy.
Maiden wins.
Since he's gotten here, and Maggie and I have talking about this a lot. Since he's gotten here, people talk about the jockeys getting lost here. You know, the same goes for the horses. This place is 1.5 miles around. It's the biggest dirt track in the world. And horses, when they're switching their leads and stuff, that there's familiarity. He's doing everything. Horses will get around here and do it different. He's doing it right.
Isn't it a bigger concern, though, that he's got a rider, and I'm not trying to knock him.
Yeah, of course.
It's never ridden a race like this. And this is a tricky track for Hall of Fame riders. And I'm not in any way trying to knock Sonny Leone.
Plenty of Hall of Fame riders blow the Belmont Stakes.
Look bad in here.
On, quite frankly, horses that have been more accomplished than Rich Strike.
I want to look at Mo Donegal's win in the Wood.
Do we have to?
He beat Early Voting, who came back to win the Preakness, and was his only loss, and he beat him fair and square. Great ride, good trip or not, he beat him fair and square. And I think the important thing to note, and why is Mo Donegal potentially the horse to beat? Because he has the best overall resume of any horse in this race.
No question about it.
If you look at his career in total, he has the best resume. And I think that shouldn't be lost just because it didn't work out in the Derby.
Yeah, probably didn't belong running at Gulfstream Park with his running style.
I thought he ran well in that race.
I thought he ran well enough.
What was wrong with his racing there?
It was a nice springboard for the rest of the year.
And he's got a little more professional, too.
He has. Yes,
so
he has.
We do have to move on at some point. Look at We the People and Golden Glider. We the People projects to be around 5-2 to 3-1 looking at the doubles. I know he was 8-1 yesterday with no money in the pool. I feel like you always have to look at a race. You're taking a stand against Flightline. You may end up looking like a fool, which is fine. This is our job to look like fools sometimes. I'm going to take a stand against this horse. I think he may be very good, and he may wire the field. But I'm not betting a horse at a short price in this situation just because he had an exaggerated win in a wet track. The buyer figure's correct, but these figures often don't get repeated on dry tracks. I think one of the reasons David made him 2-1, when he made a line, there was a real serious threat of rain. And if it was sloppy out here, he would have been favored, I think. Don't you think, if it was sloppy?
I think there's still a chance he's the favorite.
Chance. I don't think he'll be favored, though.
I don't either. I think there's still a chance.
You've got him a little higher than me.
Well, I feel like he has such a tactical advantage. In these races, we talk about, somebody's going to go with him. Yeah, in all likelihood, somebody is going to go and press him. Or at the very least, be closer than expected.
I don't think he'll boost
Press
the
is wrong.
pace.
Closer than expected. But he's going to have things his own way on the front end.
He's just got to get the mile and a half, though. And I think
price.
He has to improve off any dirt race ever on a dry track. And I'm not Mr. Wet Track, but there's a difference between the wet track thing, and this horse has an exaggerated effort on a wet track.
He does.
Creative Minister, I'll make my case for him, and then you'll make your case for Nest. My case for Creative Minister is they're all a bunch of unknowns. They're all unknown at the distance. There's nobody here I totally trust, and I figure he's going to be in the 6-1 range. So right there, I'm interested in him. He's improved. He's got an early voting thing to him. I'm not comparing him to early voting, but 76 buyer, 83 buyer, 96 buyer, 100 buyer. I also want him to win because he's the only horse that ran on the day of every Triple Crown race. He ran at Churchill on Derby Day. He ran at Preakness. He's getting better for Kenny McPeak. He's going to be a decent enough price, and he also should be in relative attendance to We the People. So if the race is compromised by pace, which at least he's not a deep closer like a horse like Mo Donegal, like a horse like Rich Strike, who may have to be taken a little bit out of their game to be more competitive here.
Yeah, okay. I liked him a lot last time. I feel like last time was the time, and I think it's a little. This is his 5th race in 14 weeks now. Like you said, he had his own Triple Crown. Gulfstream to Keeneland in Kentucky for a while. Keeneland to Pimlico to here.
Okay.
I think it's just a lot.
For people, by the way, that think the Triple Crown will get better if we ruin it by spacing it farther apart, where are all the horses from the Derby in this race 5 weeks later? It makes no sense, that argument. It falls apart at every level, and it's only mostly being made by people looking after their own self-interests. And we have enough people in racing that have hurt racing by looking after only their self-interests. And speaking of not looking after your own self-interest, being sporting and taking a shot with Nest, and don't kid yourself, they want to win. And there's a lot of upside for winning here, though arguably less for a filly than there is for the boys. I'll let you make your case for Nest, and we'll take a look at her in the Kentucky Oaks, where she ran very well, but she was clearly second best.
Todd and Mike Rapoli Tuesday, when they nominated the Derby and the Preakness were not the target. The Belmont Stakes was the race that was on their mind. She's a full sister to a horse named Idol, who won the Big Cap, going 1.25 miles. She's by Curlin out of an AP Indy mare. I would love to see Todd, who beat Curlin with.
I love that. I like that.
It's a great angle. It's a great narrative. That's the narrative, right?
And for people that say, and it's absolutely true, well, Rags to Riches was a dramatically superior horse to Nest. Yeah, she was.
Get it.
But
Curlin was better than We the People.
Curlin would win this race like Point Given won this race.
Now.
Right. So you got to be sure who she beat.
I think she's going to be a little closer than she's been with the stretch out and distance. I can see Jose Ortiz. I can see Jose Ortiz giving her a little bit of a Tapwrit trip.
She's not that slow.
Saving some ground, laying 3-4 lengths off the lead, and coming with 1 run. I'm going to try her. And same thing with you. 6-1 range. I'm going to try her at that price.
My problem with her is she has to get a lot faster. But distance is a great equalizer. And if you have a sense of confidence, listen, I've got her third, so it's not like I disagree with you. I think she's a player in here.
The great equalizer, sir.
Yeah. And you know what? I hope Rich Strike runs well. I would never bet him in here, but met the connections, the draw, and the owner was great. He was teasing me about the show. He said, I know you don't like him. I watch the show every day, but he watched the show every day. And they couldn't have been nicer, and he's a good story. And if he were to win the Belmont, he becomes a gigantic favorite to be 3-year-old of the year.
Yeah.
Very hard to beat him.
A fun renewal.
Yeah.
What's going on behind us? A lot of noise behind us. Right?
Hang on. In my ear, there's a lot of noise. Race number 12. We do have a lot to cover here. Let's take a look at North Carolina. So everybody's giving up on North Carolina. You were scratched. Your top choice was scratched in here. Take a look at his race. This is when he got caught by...
We need a minute before we talk about this. We need a minute before we talk about the race. Birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Andy, happy birthday to you.
Thanks, Mag. Thanks, guys.
A little basketball, a little early voting on there for you.
Thanks, guys. Greg, Gary, Richie, Eric, thanks so much.
Like I said earlier.
Thanks. Very disappointed we interrupted talking horses and you got 2 races to get there in 2 minutes. But.
Thank you.
Former star of Talking Horses, Eric Donovan.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Hall of Famer Gary Stevens. We got Greg Wolf here, the MIG.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Ludlow.
Thanks.
Now go over the.
Well, you better move it a little closer to me.
Right now.
You better move it a little closer to me if you want me to.
I haven't had breakfast yet.
No, where are you going to put it? Okay, thank you. And thank you so much, guys. That
like I said,
means a lot to me. Thank you.
I wouldn't want to do this every day with anybody else. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Happy birthday, many more.
It's very nice of you. Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
I'm terrible at stalling, by the way. I tried to get these poor people behind us in trouble.
Well, we do occasionally have issues with the cameras.
That's why I needed my phone today,
Thank
Andy.
you. That was very, very nice. I really, it means a lot to me. Thank you. I work with a lot of wonderful people.
And me.
And you. Shockingly, the people on the TV show, we actually all get along.
We do.
Which is pretty amazing because I get along with about 12 people on Earth. And
he works with 9 of them.
I managed to get along with the people I work with here. But thank you. We'll take a look at North Carolina. This is the race he got run down by Conquer the World, who I thought was a good horse before I bet him, and he got easy the other day. I still think, obviously, something went wrong. He's supposed to be tough at a mile. I'm not against him. I just prefer Al's Rocket a little bit.
Yeah, that was it. I'm with you. I got Al's Rocket to drop. Best tops to drop, right? This is down to the 75 range. Yeah, I mean, he really didn't have much of a chance. Al's Rocket 4 wide against the good inside when we first opened the turf course over at Aqueduct. Left him in on the off the turf race because he had run well enough in his dirt debut, and
it was 2-6-5.
He just makes a lot of sense in here.
Al's Rocket. You know what worries me a little bit? Todd dropping him.
Yeah, I guess.
Because, well, they bet him off the board, and I bet Bay Street money, and I couldn't understand why they're betting off the board. Well, I got the money in here, but I was lucky because they were right to bet him. I mean, what happens to him in the first turn, we'll roll into the turn here, look at how close he is at this point, right? I mean, he's right there on top of the pace. And this was a turf course that was very much tilted towards inside runners in here. And he goes from being right there to getting sort of pushed out here in the first turn. And suddenly he's completely and totally out of the race.
All the way out. And again, wide against the rail.
And then he made
really
a big closing run on the outside. He had everything against him in that race, and he ran well. I was just surprised that Todd ran him in a claiming race before he ran him again.
Everybody can really take him for 75.
And your horse was sort of the interesting horse, the 11 that came out, right, with a little bit of pedigree. I have Neko in there. And finally, I think we're really almost – no, we got a minute here.
We got a minute.
Race number 13, let's take a look at Palace Gossip, No Pain, and Fontana Freda. I think cutting back to 6 furlongs helps Palace Gossip. I wish he drew a little more inside, but I think she's the horse to beat in here.
The draw stinks for her, but yes, I agree. She's the horse to beat.
I think it was a huge inside bias in the turfs like we've seen some days take a real, but I think there was still a real benefit to being inside.
How much money is she going to take on the rider change, though? You know, she's become a bit of a, a bit of a sort where she's starting to burn some money, and now she's going to get Flavien Prat aboard. She's going to take a lot of money. Combine that with the draw. I couldn't put her on top. I went to the rail with So Lib, who I think can work out a good trip. If you flip-flop post positions, I'd be picking Palace Gossip, but with the rail, I'll take a little bit of a better price with So Lib.
Well, I mean, I think the argument for So Lib is, are we so sure she's not a better sprinter because she ran well enough? Now, I hate these turnbacks, but, you know, she ran well enough in the dirt in that sprint. It's going to improve. I took Flip My Lid because I liked her last time.
You love the name.
She didn't get Flip My Id.
Yeah.
It is a great name.
You said Flip My Lid, which makes more sense for us.
She didn't take a nickel last time, and she just folded her 10.
Yeah, she didn't run well.
Isn't Irad supposed to? I mean, I know she's got Blame It on Mary, but he's going to be forward with her, and I'm going to give her one more chance. My feeling was, and I don't love her, I liked her last time. Maybe it was just a bad opinion. I went through this race, right. I tried to make a lot of cases, got the money with Happy. I thought Dufresne was a little interesting, but he was like 5th or somewhere. And how do you not like a horse from the Shawshank Redemption?
Of course.
Anyway, that does it for Talking Horses. We have some stuff to run through. Head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code Belmont25. We will give you that free $25 bet as well as $200 sign-up match. We have the $20 I've already logged in for this. I haven't logged in the Affirm thing because maybe you'll tout me to somehow bet somebody in there, and I'll take a shot at getting there. $20 bonus. You bet 200 or more on the first 5 races. Free $20 doing that. Plenty of action, including the stakes action. I like this. So you'll split 5,000. Now, listen, you may split it with 100 people. You might split it with 1,000 people. I've had friends that pick 4s and things that have split this with one person. The Met Mile and the Affirmed. That's the Affirmed in California. See, if Taba hadn't run the Derby, he could be running there as he gets ready to run to the Belmont, to the Travers.
They get 5 of 7 former Baffert runners in the Affirm.
This is cool, the showdown. It don't cost nothing. Sign up at Naira.com. Winner take all. I love that, winner take all. We have lots of multi-plays. You got the Met Mile Belmont double. Got a triple play. Anthony has tickets up for any wager that you could possibly imagine, and then some that you've never heard of and don't actually exist. And finally, America's Day at the Races. We're on from 11 a.m. I thought it looked like 1 a.m. If we're on 1 a.m., Anthony will be on.
I will be
2:30 at 2:30, and then we'll be back after the Belmont 7:15 to 8:30, and then of course CNBC and then NBC covering.
CNBC 3 to 5, big NBC 5 to 7.
And a big thank you to everyone I work with. I work with wonderful people here, and I really do appreciate it, as you as well, and I appreciate you a great deal as well. We're done. The man, Johnny I, up next, the reprise, the scratches and changes. Have a great Belmont Stakes Day.